Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan. I'm really excited to be here. It's been a long couple years, and I've definitely missed this in real life thing. So I appreciate being here. I'm going to be talking today about custom design systems in Jetpack Compose. And just in case there are any Jakes in the audience, I feel like I should clarify this is custom design systems in Compose UI. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, a couple housekeeping things. If you want to follow along, the slides are published at ryans.link/dsyscompose. DSys means design systems. So you can check out the slides there. And also, there are some parts about custom design systems that I won't be getting into, and once the videos come out, because it's too late to see his talk, Sebastiano gave a really great talk, Compose Beyond Material, which is all about not material-related Compose design system stuff, so I highly recommend checking that one out. And with that, let's get into it. So to start out with, I want to talk about Compose UI and the pieces that make up the structure of Compose UI. Several of the talks, including Sebastiano's, have covered this before, so we'll go kind of quick. So Compose UI is made up of multiple modules, like Maven modules, or dependencies. So at the bottom level, we have Compose UI. Compose UI is primitives. That's, if you want to put something on the screen, Compose UI has it. It has primitives for drawing, for measurement, layout, things like the canvas APIs within Compose. Those are part of Compose UI. Built on top of that, we have Foundation. The Compose Foundation library is higher level composables for things like layout, lazy loading, gestures, text, and all of that. And what's important about Foundation is that Foundation is design system agnostic. So while it has basic text, if you came to the Compose text talk, while it has like the basic text composable, it doesn't have the added text style management that is part of the design system. That's all at the low level. And then on top of those, we have Compose Material. So the Material design library for Compose. There's also Material 3, which is not quite complete, but is out there. Today I'm going to be talking about the Compose Material version, which is the Compose that we all know and love from the last however many years when Material came out. Compose Material builds on top of Foundation and Compose UI, and that's what adds the design system. So below that, we don't have any design system stuff. And up there, we get the design system, which is like widgets and components. So things like buttons, snack bar, switch, all of those things that you can find on material.io, the website. It also has styles. So the different token systems like typography, color, shape that Material defines as the extension points. And so let's dig a little deeper into that, specifically the Compose Material library, and take a look at how this is structured. If you've done any intro to Compose or normal Compose or code labs or anything like that, you've probably seen the material theme composable. So this is a composable that you're able to wrap your layouts or screens, your app, whatever it is, in. And that's what actually provides the different styles. And those styles are these pluggable components on top. They're called token systems. The colors, typography, and shape are the three that Compose Material defines. Different design systems have different sets. So I think shape is pretty specific to Material. A lot of other design systems don't quite go that far. Most of them will have colors and typography. And then underneath that, we have our components, which reach up into the Material theme and in order to get their styling information, to understand how you customized the Material theme. And as I mentioned before, the components access styling information through these token systems. And those are the extension points to the Compose material theme. So I want to take a quick sidebar here and talk about design system tokens. This is something that is general across design systems, but effectively different design systems have different tokens. And in material, we have something like colors. You have a colors class, and we have all of these properties defined. These are the tokens for the material color system. And these are semantic tokens. And so what we mean when we say semantic tokens is that I work at Dropbox. We have a color called Dropbox Blue. But in material, we might set that to the primary color. And the naming there is important. We're naming things based on their usage or their purpose. And the idea there is that if we move into something like a photo editing experience where we might have like a monochromatic theme, having Dropbox Blue as our accent color or primary color, it wouldn't make sense. And so that's why design systems, as you know, over the last 10 years, have really moved to semantic naming, so that these things are configurable and kind of always make sense, and you can understand what the purpose of these tokens are. Typography is the same. This is Materials typography token system. These are the tokens. And while the rest of this is how it's implemented in Kotlin, the tokens are the same across web, iOS, Android. The shape of the class or how they're implemented, if it's in XML for legacy views or if it's in Kotlin for Compose, that might change, but the tokens themselves stay the same. And so that is a brief overview of design system tokens. And with that is sort of the structure of Compose material. So moving on, say you want to use the material theme, but you want to customize it. According to the Android documentation, which they actually changed this part of the documentation like 2 weeks ago, so you can all be mad at Google for me. But there are basically 3 approaches to customizing material themes. You can customize material itself, you can extend material, or you can implement a fully custom design system. And these are all different ways to customize material, but still be able to use material under the hood. And so let's see. So taking a look at customizing material and how we're going to do that. So I mentioned before, I showed this diagram of the structure of material, and you may notice there's me showing this diagram of the material theme. And I mentioned that everybody, that all of the components, they sort of reach up into the theme to grab those, to grab the styling information. And if you want to customize that, those token systems are sort of the place to do that. And so here's an example of how you might do that. We'll run through this relatively quickly. So in this case, we have my theme, which is my custom apps theme. And then that is just a wrapper for a material theme. And one thing you'll notice is that we have this content lambda, this trailing lambda that takes content, and that allows us to wrap our layouts within our theme. And that content lambda, we just pass that right down to the material theme. So that's the content of your app or screen or anything like that. From there, we might have different color systems, for instance. So we have light colors and dark colors. Maybe in this app, we based on the system light-dark preference, things can change. And we want to customize our app for that. So what we can do is we can check, is the system in dark mode? And we can select our customized color palettes based on that. And we give that directly to the material theme. We might have more static things. So at Dropbox, we have a very square sort of look in our design system. And so, so things like shapes, which we aren't going to really need to customize. It's not something users will have a preference for or something like that. So we can just statically set that here. And so now we have our own custom theme, which wraps material theme, but has been customized for our appearance. And then when we want to use it, at our entry point into Compose, so when we enter into our app, all we have to do is just wrap the contents of the screen, the application content, whatever it's going to be, in our theme, and we automatically get those customized material theme wrapper. So that's at the most basic level how you can customize material, and that works really well if you have a design system that follows material pretty closely, maybe matches up with the material tokens. But going back here, and as we move on, there might be cases where you don't. You have different tokens. Maybe you have, primary and secondary, those tokens just like material, but you want to add something. So you can extend the material theme. And so there are a couple ways to do this. The most basic is with extension functions, because we love Kotlin and it lets us do cool things. So in this case, you can see that that we've got extension functions on materials token systems, so on colors, typography, and shapes. And these extension functions just allow us to add extra stuff. The limitation to this is that this should really only be used for stuff that won't change. So if you want to add something like a card shape to the card token system, that makes sense. If you want to add something where you're adding color tokens and users can select between multiple themes, that gets really complex really quickly and is not recommended using this approach. So you'll want to extend material in a different way. And this is where we get back into this again, right? Remember, back there, doing a lot of talking about that slide. I mentioned that material provides tokens in this way. And this diagram is great for sort of like an introductory way of thinking about it. But this isn't really like how material theme, the composable, works, largely because we wrap our views with the material theme. So that looks more like this. And what happens here is that the material theme provides these token systems using composition locals within the theme, within the scope of that theme. And so in our app, we might have the material theme, and then we might have a surface which contains a button and some text. And those are all going to be themed there. We could add another surface to it, and then what's interesting is we can actually add another material theme, right? So you can, so because of the composition local nature of this, it can be nested, it can go down, so you can have a section within your app, within a portion of a screen, which actually maybe uses the dark theme or the light theme or switches or something like that. And so the way that this works with composition locals is when something like this button on the bottom right here, when it needs to determine what shape should I be, or what color should my background be, or what should my text color be, it reaches up using composition locals to basically the nearest parent that provides those tokens. And so in this case, this button in the bottom right is going to be getting those nearby material theme tokens, whereas this button over here on the left, when it needs its styling, it's going to be reaching up into the nearest parent, which provides this other set of tokens. And all of that is important because we saw before that we have these classes that provide those tokens. So if you want to extend material to add new tokens, material comes out of the box with primary and secondary. Let's say you want to add a tertiary color. And of course, you need an on-tertiary color. Any color that can be used for a surface needs a color to determine what things on that surface should be. So you can make a data class that has your extended colors, and it has your tertiary and non-tertiary colors. And then you create a composition local, and we'll call it local extended colors. This is a composition local that provides those those extended colors. And then within our theme, this is just like the my theme or my app theme or whatever I called it before. We're calling this one extended theme. It takes a content composable lambda so that we can wrap our content in it. And you'll notice inside there, we instantiate our extended colors. We can take them in as a parameter. We can, however we want to get those. In this case, we're going to instantiate some hard-coded values. And then here's where the magic happens. We create a composition local provider, which is a composable that effectively sets up a scoped environment where you can say, get me the local extended colors for like within this context. And in this case, our local extended colors are going to provide those extended colors that we just created. And then we wrap our entire material theme in that. What that means is that anything within our layout, the content that we passed into here, anytime it tries to get extended colors, it's able to do it because of that composition local provider. And the last piece that we need is an object, which we'll also call extended theme. And this is the same way that material theme, if you want to pull out a color or a typographic style or any of those tokens, you can just say material theme.typography.h1 or material theme.color.primary. This is the same mechanism here. So we have an object called extended theme. It has a colors property, which the getter is a composable, which just gets the current composition local extended colors. And all the composition local stuff is quite a mouthful. But that allows us to access everything the same way that we would from the material theme. And then going on into usage, this is, I should say, this code is straight out of the Android documentation. So the way that Google recommends you do this is you would make your custom button, so an extended button or a Dropbox button or a whatever button. And then, so you have your composable for your custom button. And then within there, it's going to wrap a material button and override whatever it needs to. In this case, we're going to override the background and content color using our tertiary colors that we made from the extended theme. And with that, anytime you place an extended button somewhere, it's going to have access to those tertiary colors in your theme. So that is the extension approach. And the last one that Google recommends, and then after this I'll move on to kind of where we went at Dropbox, but the last approach that Google recommends for customizing material is talking about fully custom design systems. And this, Google talks about this as material theming and fully custom design systems. This is a little different than Seb's talk, which was about literally making a fully custom design system without material. The way that Google talks about it is effectively having a custom design system while being able to use the material components. So that's sort of the differentiator there. And so to run through that, we again have a custom theme, takes a content composition composable lambda, and then whatever token systems your design system has. In this sample case, colors and typography, which again are very standard, and then custom elevation is part of this mythical design system. And then what you're able to do, again, the same way material design does it, the same way that if you're extending material and you provide your extended tokens, you use a composition local provider. So your custom colors, typography, elevation, you have composition locals that are able to provide those values, and then you just pass the content directly to that. And what you'll notice in this example is that there is no material theme involved here. Now, and then I highlight those things and passing the content down. Now, the sort of hairy part about this that I find a bit cumbersome is that then they go on to recommend since we don't have a material theme in there, all of the material components are, they're designed to pull their styling information from the material theme, from materials local composition local providers. And so if you try to use a material button or material text or any of that stuff just out of the box, it will break. It will not work because there is no material theme for it to get its stuff from. So what Google recommends here is you make custom buttons that wrap materials buttons, or custom text that might wrap material text, all that kind of stuff. And then what you have to do is a whole lot of stuff to effectively override every place where where the material component might be looking for a material provided theme token. You have to override all of that with your custom theme. And at that point, you're able, yes, you are able to use the Compose material, buttons, text, all of those components, but you also have a whole lot of overhead and, in my opinion, a bunch of extra code maintenance that you're going to have to do. So those are the approaches from Google. That's what the Android documentation suggests for customizing material theming. So I want to talk a bit about sort of switch gears into like what we've done at Dropbox. So I joined Dropbox about 6 months ago, and when I came in, we were in this position where Dropbox has a design system. It's very, very fleshed out. This is actually our online documentation for it. It reminds me a lot of like the material.io website, where we have a full set of components, all the standards like buttons and snack bars and all that kind of stuff. But we have our own color token systems, which are not related to material color tokens in any way. We have our own typography system, whereas material goes sort of the HTML route of H1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of thing. We have stuff like title large, title standard, title small, paragraph extra large, like all that kind of stuff. So we have like these token systems that don't match up. We have components that do to a lot of in a lot of cases, but that's kind of where we were at when I joined. And when I came in, the task was implement our design system, which we call Dig, in Compose and for mobile. So where we started, we already have a design system. We have our own color tokens, typography tokens, components. When I started this, there were some goals that I had in mind here. Number one, I wanted to be able to get started fast, and not me in implementing the design system, but especially for Compose. We had a bunch of Android engineers, a bunch of really great Android engineers who were excited to be using Compose, to start using Compose. And they were blocked because they didn't have a reasonable way to use Compose that fits our design system. And I wanted them to be able to get started fast doing that without having to wait on me to spend 6, 9, 12 months to implement this design system before they can do anything. I wanted it to be easy to use, and I say no cheat sheet there because I'm always reminded of, I feel like back in the web development days of printing out some sort of like infographic, or man, with OpenGL doing this kind of thing, and like you tape it up on the wall right by your monitor so you can look up there. And I didn't want our feature engineers to have to do that, to know that like, okay, when I get a design and it has like a title large, that means I'm going to use an H1 from material theme, and like to understand all of that mapping. I wanted access to all of the existing material composables. Google's invested a lot to implement a whole bunch of stuff, and I want to be able to use that. We have a much, well, I don't know how big Google's team is. It's bigger than ours. But I didn't want to have to re-implement all that kind of stuff. And then use Compose while implementing the design system. And this last piece, there's sort of some risks involved. And so I wanted to be able to use material components, but I wanted to also be able to migrate away from them and at least have a path for that. We may not need to, but my thinking was if the risk that I saw was if we're using material components and we get to a point where it's too much overhead to try to like marry the design systems, we want to be able to migrate away from that and have a path to do that without starting from square one. So those are the goals. Looking at the recommendations from Google for how to customize material theming, things didn't quite fit. Different ideas were close, but they seem to have some drawbacks. So I kind of came up with an intermediate approach that I kind of call wrapping material. And it sort of fits in between extending and material and implementing a fully custom design system. And it meets those goals. And effectively, the idea here with wrapping material is I implement my own design system from the token standpoint. So we have different tokens from material. We have primary, secondary accent, and then some random button ones for historical reasons, and then a bunch of other color tokens in there. So this looks like a custom design system in Compose from a token standpoint. And then what I ended up doing was going a step further and effectively like building a mapping between my custom tokens and materials tokens. And so this gives us a sane set of defaults where I can map in code instead of on the cheat sheet that's taped up to the wall between our design system tokens and materials. We do the same for typography. I mentioned we have tokens like title large, standard small, and label X large, large, standard, small, X small, all that kind of stuff. And we do the same thing. We can make a reasonable default set of mapping from our tokens to material tokens, and then we get into the theme. And at this point, this is, again, sort of a mix between extending material and a fully custom design system, in that we take in, we have different properties or different portions of the app which might want to customize some of these in different ways. I mentioned the photo picker, or not photo picker, photo viewing experience, which might have like a monochromatic dark theme. And so we take in the tokens so that they can be customized. We take in that trailing lambda of the composable. And then those pieces. And then we set up our own composition local provider, just like you would with a custom theme. So this is going to provide our colors and our typography tokens, and shape we don't care about because that's not something that we customize. But then unlike a fully custom theme that uses material components, we actually do wrap the material theme. And we use those mapping functions to map our tokens that were passed in to the material colors and typography. And we give it our static set of shapes, and then we pass the content down. So this in-between approach has enabled some interesting things. So when we're using this, just like with any other design system theme, we wrap our screen or our content in our dig theme. But what's different about what we saw with the custom design systems from the Android documentation is that within that theme, we can use the material components out of the box. So in this case, the button and text, these are material button and text components. And since they're reaching up into the material theme providers that we've mapped from our theme, so they get all of their styles. I didn't customize the text, but one of the advantages of doing this is we have internally, these components are able to use the material provided tokens, but for our feature developers, that's all transparent. They don't ever see the material tokens, if you wanted to customize the type of text here, they would reach into the dig theme and they would say, set the text style on this to digtheme.typography.title large, for instance. And when we see that in our Compose preview, you can see by doing that, from a feature developer standpoint, this is effectively a custom theme, but they get to use all of the material components under the hood, so we didn't have to spend all the time rewriting or re-implementing all of those material components. So that's where we're at today. I do want to talk a bit about the migration side of things. In a previous slide, my last bullet was that we wanted to be able to migrate away from material under the hood so that we had a mechanism with which we could mitigate some risk. And so what kind of risk is that? Well, first of all, not all material elements perform like we expect or like our design system dictates. And an example of that is the top app bar. We have something in the dig, the Dropbox interface guidelines, called a navigation bar, because it must have come from iOS. But it's the same thing as a top app bar. But in material, top app bar uses the accent color, or the primary color, in material tokens out of the box. We don't do that. Our accent color is Dropbox blue. In light theme, it's a little different in dark theme. But our navigation bar uses a regular surface color. If you open the Dropbox app in the light theme, it's white. So there are these kind of like small discrepancies where things don't quite work exactly as we would hope. And we don't want to our feature developers to have to override that everywhere they're going to use top app bar or remember that stuff. And we're able to mitigate that so far by creating custom components. So we have a custom navigation bar, which, similar to the Google's recommendation for custom design systems, it wraps a top app bar under the hood, and it does customize that. But the important thing is we don't have to do it for everything before we can get started. And then we sort of, the problem with that, though, if we go with that approach forever, is that now we're stuck in this situation where feature engineers might not know which implementation to use. They're going to make a screen and they see, oh, this looks like a top app bar. I've seen that in the Compose code labs. And so they throw it in and it doesn't work right. And they didn't know, okay, I'm actually supposed to use a navigation bar there. So the idea with sort of doing this in this type of fashion where we're customizing things as we go is we have all of these composables that Material provides for us. And since we've been able to get reasonable defaults by wrapping the Material theme, our product engineers are able to start using Compose. We're already shipping Compose features to production, and they're able to do that. And it's early adopters in our team at this point, but they're able to get there. But over time, we're able to replace these implementations with our own over time while the feature engineers are still going. And then we'll get to this point where we have our entire design system custom implemented, but again, our feature engineers didn't have to wait 6, 9, 12 months before they were able to use it. And so right now, what we have in our Gradle file, in our dependencies, it kind of looks like this for our design system module, right? We have, you'll notice Compose Material there as an API dependency because that's something that all of our product engineers are going to be using, the Material components within there. My hope is that as we move on and once we get everything implemented, we'll be able to just shift that down to an implementation dependency. And that way, it's no longer something that our product engineers have to decide, am I going to use a top app bar or a navigation bar, because all they'll see is the proper dig components that they're supposed to use. So that's the plan. But where are we at right now? So to start out, this is sort of the roadmap for this kind of thing. We have implementing our theme so that our product engineers can get started. And then we need to, audit components and find out which of these components are going to be thin shims or light wrappers versus needing to implement ourselves. And then we get to that phase, that future phase, where we can remove material and just have our custom design system. This is sort of where we're at right now, at this point. So the theme's in place. Our product engineers, as I mentioned, the early adopters are shipping features to production with it. We're sort of in the audit phase. I've been going through all of the components within our design system, deciding, what level of customization do we need and where are we at. And who knows, maybe later this year I'll give this talk again with this more filled in, and I can share all of the mistakes made along the way. But that's where we're at now. It's worked pretty well for us and allowed us to get started really fast, which was really the goal, and allowed us to do our design system development along with product development in tandem, which has really been nice. And so with that, that is custom design systems in Jetpack Compose UI.